I'd like to welcome you. My name is Chris Aiken. I'm the chair of the Downtown Business Association, and very happy to welcome our Economic Development Officer, Jonathan Lightfoot. Just for some perspective, the DBA and the city have been working for some time to bring on more outdoor dining in a couple different forms. With the latest closure, there's been some urgency to bring outdoor dining for us. And so we set up this meeting here at the DBA to give you the latest updates and also to go over some of the forms that will be required. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce again Jonathan Lightfoot, our Economic Development Officer of the City of San Clemente, to give an update of where we're at on the outdoor dining. Take it away, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chris. As many of you are very aware, the governor announced last week that we had a step back in our current reopening that does affect our restaurants and the indoor areas for service at restaurants and some other industries are supposed to be closed as of last Friday. So moving forward, we recognize that is, a significant handicap to businesses, especially that have been trying to bring their staffing back and operate in a more normal fashion. And so we want to try to pivot as quickly as we can to get some more accessibility to outdoor dining. So the thought is that there are some basic city resources that I'm working on getting together. And we're looking for a potential drop of those resources on Wednesday. So that would be some parade barricades. Those are the common metal 8-foot long barricades that we can use on Del Mar, as well as some portable trash containers where you can just set a liner within that container. So what I'm looking to do is organize that drop off for Wednesday and coordinate with each of the participating restaurants to get those barricades put in place. Before that, so Monday or Tuesday, you may see today or tomorrow, you may see some no parking signs put up in front of those locations that we've indicated. So I want to say thank you to Julie Hines with the DBA, who put together, with a lot of hard work, a very good map for us to use as a reference that indicates the different business locations and the parking spaces in front. And she's also even gone the extra distance of indicating the parking availability on Del Mar. And what we're looking at, really, it should be a minimal impact to, the other businesses where we're pulling out about 25% of the parking stock and using that for the dining area on Del Mar. So that's what our timeline is going to look like this week. In the next couple of days, we'll get some no parking signage put in front of those stalls to indicate Wednesday. And on Wednesday have the equipment dropped. And I'll send out a follow-up email to the group to coordinate a time to meet with, just staggered, to meet with the different restaurant owners to get those set up in place. And then as for the interior spaces, that's going to be something that at this point, the restaurants will just furnish on their own. So whether you have movable tables that you can bring out from in your interior spaces and use, if you do not have those and need to do some rentals, then let us know. You can contact either myself or Chris, and we've compiled some information about potential rentals, different types of tables that you could use and other equipment for that area. I also have information from an example that was set up down by the pier. La Galette was the first on-street dining area. They are also using the same barricades that we'll be using. And I have John, the restaurant owner down there, has provided me kind of his list of equipment that he purchased to get his space set up. So I can also share that information. So that's generally what our timeline will look like. And this pivot really, what it does is create a space for us to operate daily outdoors for the restaurants on Del Mar, as opposed to a single event or a weekly event that we had initially been considering. We are still going to be looking at the promenade on Del Mar and having a full street closure. And that is something that we'll be following up on separately. The push right now is to make sure that we get this longer term daily outdoor dining set up. And the daily setup is something that we'll be doing for the duration of this existing health order, or this current mandate that requires the indoor dining to be closed. That was set to be a minimum of 3 weeks. I think realistically we'll be looking at a little bit longer than that because of July 4th and the potential for further spread beyond that. Just to give a quick snapshot of what the numbers currently look like in Orange County and kind of why we're at this place where we are. The test positivity rate is something that the state is tracking pretty closely, and the state's average had been consistently around 5% when we were at that spot of leveling the curve, and that started to climb recently. The state's average has climbed up to about 6.5%. Orange County, unfortunately, is up to 14%. So we are currently more than double the state's positivity rate. So, given those numbers that we're seeing, I just would be very surprised if this only lasts for 3 weeks. So all of that just really lends itself to needing to create this space. And I think that my perspective is that we need to get running, and we can figure out some of the details along the way in conjunction with you, the restaurant owners, and getting those spaces designed, et cetera. But I wanted to coordinate on my side to get some of those basic materials in place right away. So that's timeline and numbers information. But I do want to shift over. I did send a couple of emails and talk through a couple pieces of the paperwork that we need to have at the city. And please just refer back to those emails for the attachments and links, but I'll reference each one real quickly. The first is the general application. And some of you may have signed an acknowledgement generally, but I do want to take in actually a separate application now. So the acknowledgement form was tied to the promenade idea when we were going to have the DBA be the master applicant. In this instance, now that we have a daily operation with individual restaurants on the street, I do want to have each of you fill out that application. It's a single page essentially, and return that to me. And after that, after you submit that, there is kind of an extended acknowledgement form that I'll send out to each of you. It does, in addition to the city's basic acknowledgements, provide a list of Orange County fire requirements and our pollution prevention requirements. So that's something I want all of you to just be able to read through and understand. It gives some basic information on, what types of things or equipment you shouldn't be using for fire safety, and what types of procedures you should be using to clean up that prevents pollution on the street. So I'll be sending that after I receive your completed application. The next piece is that if you are serving any alcohol, and some of you have already taken care of this, but if you are serving alcohol, please make sure to fill out the required ABC form. There's an application for temporary catering. I think Chris may have that and may be able to share while I talk about this one. There's a primary application form, and then there's a secondary form that you can access. So I've shared this link, the link to this document. And you can see up in the very top in the black instructions, it has an underlined Form ABC 253. So that is the second page that you'll need to fill out. But that second page really is just going to be your license information, and then it provides a blank space for a diagram. And we'll be able to use Julie's map of Del Mar for your diagram. You don't need to draw anything separately. You can submit the map. So this is that supplemental form. Very simple. Again, you just submit your name, the address, your license type, and then for the diagram, you can just say see attached and attach the PDF that Julie has created of that map of Del Mar, because that map indicates the parking locations where dining will be going. And then Chris, if we could go back to that first form, a couple things I wanted to point out that there have been some questions on. So once he gets that pulled up, I forget these specific numbers. So give us 1 second. Perfect, thanks, Chris. Okay, so let's get down into like the 8, 9, 10, 11. 8, will the expanded area be shared with another licensee? The goal is no, that we'll have at least some form of barricade, even if there are 2 outdoor dining areas side by side. So number 9 would also be no. Do you have legal authority to use the requested area? That's going to be a yes, and that's because the city is allowing for you to use the city property, so you can mark yes there. And what's your legal authority to use this area? I will be creating individual permits for each restaurant, but we're going to just use the umbrella application for the promenade concept here, just to be simple and consistent. You can use its SAP 20-201. I'll just say that one more time. SAP 20-201. That's the temporary outdoor dining permit number. I may be giving each of you individually, like for instance, the seller will have a permit for their outdoor dining area, and that may be SAP 20-123, a different number. Either of those will work, but for everyone, the 20-201 will work. And I've already communicated to the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control that we'll be submitting kind of a master site plan for this. Those are the main questions that I've received on those areas. If you do get any other questions as you fill out that form, feel free to reach out to me, and I can coordinate with ABC to make sure we get it filled out correctly. So thanks, Chris, for sharing that one. And then I sent a follow-up email to the group that indicated that we also have an insurance requirement. You'll see in the application, it has some language about if you're operating anywhere on public property, you need to fill out this, or you need to supplementally provide insurance information. In my follow-up email, I provided an example or a description of what that insurance requirement will look like. So you would just need to reach out to your current insurance provider and name the city as an additionally insured, provide us a certificate as well as the endorsement. And that's something that, again, you should be able to get a good visual of what that looks like from that second email that I sent previously. Again, if there's any questions on any of these documents, feel free to reach out to me directly. And once you have those documentation, the final step is that I'll be sending you a PDF to post, kind of a permit certificate that just indicates that you've completed that. We have seen, understandably, over the weekend, several different restaurants pop up outdoor areas that haven't been permitted yet. So we'll be contacting them to get that sorted. And our main concern really is just protection of the restaurants. So making sure that you don't expose yourself to ADA liability, and similarly, making sure that if you're in the right of way, that we have the proper documentation in place there. So I think that kind of wraps up, Chris, what we're looking at. And again, I'll have a follow-up for specific times. I believe it'll be Wednesday morning when we get the equipment on street to begin setting up. So I'll follow up with an email to the restaurant group distribution that I have to alert you to what time that will be, and potentially set up a couple of windows of time to meet with individual restaurant owners to have you guys help me, or have a staff member help me walk those barricades down to the location in front of your restaurant where we will be getting set up. I think that wraps up what I need to talk through, but I am open for any initial questions. If there are any questions, there is a Q&A or in a chat box at the bottom. Either way, I think you'd be able to access those. And I do see there are some chats, so let me see if there's any questions from there.
Yeah, Jonathan, one just came in. It says, can we leave the tables out overnight, or do they need to be pulled in every night?
Yeah, so I, in this instance, am going to be comfortable with the equipment being left on the street, but we do want to have that be done in a way that, one, protects your tables or the rental tables, however that comes to be. So what I would be looking for is that if you're planning on leaving them on the street, that you just have a plan to tie them together, secure them in place, and the same will go with the barricades. So my recommendation is that we would stack and move those next to the barricades and tie all of that together so that it becomes something that's not easy for someone to drive off with any of that equipment.
And Jonathan, we have a question from the seller regarding ADA. If there is no ramp to our outdoor area, what should we consider? Is the question.
Yeah. For the seller, this will be a little bit easier, and anyone that has existing outdoor dining, this will be easy. The ADA, the building code, how it treats that is if you're providing an amenity, then you have to have accessibility to that amenity. If you're already providing outdoor dining, then when that tenant improvement was done, it was reviewed for ADA compatibility. And so what your responsibility would be then is to provide space for anyone who may be disabled to dine in your existing permitted patio outdoor area. So that would go for Brussels Bistro, the cellar, anyone that has an existing outdoor patio. There's not a requirement that you reserve that table and leave it empty, but if someone comes who is disabled, then you direct them to one of those tables in your existing permitted area once it becomes available. That's how that would be handled. If you do not have any existing outdoor dining, then that's where I would have to work with you to create a diagram, and there would be something. Probably we would be relying on the city's on-street ADA parking, which you'll notice from the map. We're not using any of the on-street ADA parking for dining facilities. So we would just identify the nearest path of travel from the parking space to the dining area. And similarly, then we'd have to identify a route from that dining area on street into your restaurant. So even though, one thing to make clear, even though the interior dining is closed, you still would need to leave your restrooms open and available. So you shouldn't have like loitering inside your restaurant, but it does need to be available if you're having any form of on-site dining, even if it is outdoors.
Okay, is there any other questions from our attendees? You could please submit them in now. Process-wise, DBA, we're going to send out an email with the forms after this call. It'll also include a recording of this call for those who are not able to make it. We posted the email for Jonathan and the DBA in the chat box, so please take that down. And Jonathan is a great resource for any questions that come up after. But just really quickly, any other questions before we wrap up this particular session? Okay, Jonathan, I think, I guess any other final comments? I guess Wednesday is kind of the timeline that we're targeting.
Yes, Wednesday is what I'm targeting. I would say, and Chris, we discussed this before, there is a council meeting tomorrow. So if you have any thoughts generally about, ways that the city can be supportive of your businesses during, these strange times, it's a good time to put your ideas out there. You can submit those comments to the city clerk, and those get read into the record at the city council meetings. So that's tomorrow. If you want to have an opportunity to provide your thoughts and feedback to the council directly, you can do that. And then otherwise, I think that the goal is to be adaptive as things change. Feel free to communicate with me along the way about any ideas you have. I'm certainly open to any ideas, and then recognizing that I do coordinate with other divisions too, to make sure that any of these new ideas are things that put the city and the businesses in a good spot where we're not exposed to too much liability. So that's, I guess, where I'll leave it, is that I'm here to be a resource. So if there are questions, thoughts, ideas, again, please feel free to contact me directly. I'm happy to communicate with all of you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for everyone for attending, and we will provide updates soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks.